The Young and the Restless spoilers title, The Battle Within, Sharon's Descent. Sharon stood at the edge of her consciousness, teetering between reality and the abyss of her mind. The world outside moved on, a blur of ordinary days and familiar faces. But within her, a storm raged, a storm named Cameron. It had started subtly, almost imperceptible. Cameron was not a person, not a ghost or a figure haunting her steps, but a creation of her fractured psyche. At first, she had seen him as a shadow, a fleeting figure in the periphery of her vision. But soon, Cameron became more than a shadow. He became a voice, presence, and obsession. Sharon knew, deep down, that Cameron was a manifestation of her own mind, a symptom of the illness that had been festering inside her for far too long. But knowing it did little to weaken his grip on her. Every day was a battle to reclaim her thoughts, to remind herself that Cameron did not exist. Yet, no matter how hard she tried, she could not escape him. Cameron was always there, whispering in her ear, undermining her sanity. Sharon, his voice would echo in the hollow chambers of her mind. You can't get rid of me. I am you. She had tried to fight back, to reclaim her mind from this dark creation. The more she resisted, the stronger he seemed to grow. Sharon knew she had to win, but each failed attempt drained her, leaving her more vulnerable to Cameron's influence. His presence was a constant reminder of her illness, a living embodiment of the torment she could not escape. Why couldn't she defeat him? The question gnawed at her. She had fought so hard, tried every technique she knew to banish him, yet Cameron remained. The answer, she feared, lay in the very fabric of her being. Cameron wasn't just a part of her. He was the part she had tried to suppress, the darkness she had never confronted. And now that darkness was consuming her. Cameron, too, was engaged in his own battle. There was something inside him, inside Sharon, that terrified him. Something far more monstrous than himself. A demon that clawed at the edges of his consciousness, threatening to take over. This demon had one command, one unyielding directive. Kill Lucy. Hurt her, by any means necessary. Sharon knew Lucy well. She was an innocent, kind soul who had done nothing to deserve the terror that Cameron threatened to unleash upon her. Yet, Sharon was powerless to stop the thoughts that surged through her mind. The desire to protect Lucy warred with the overwhelming urge to obey Cameron's commands. It was a fight that left Sharon paralyzed, unable to trust her own mind, her own hands. Desperate for help, Sharon reached out to those around her. She told them of her fears, Cameron's voice in her head. No one understood. How could they? Cameron wasn't real, at least not to them. To them, Sharon's struggle was invisible, a silent war raging within the confines of her mind. She tried locking herself away, shutting herself in a room where Cameron's influence couldn't reach Lucy. But the walls of that room became a prison, a place where Cameron's voice grew louder, commands more insistent. As a last resort, Sharon turned to medication, hoping that the heavy pull of sleep would drown out Cameron's voice. The pills brought no peace. Instead, they dragged her deeper into the abyss, where Cameron's presence became even more pervasive. The more she tried to escape him, the more he infiltrated her thoughts, her dreams. The line between reality and illusion blurred, and Sharon began to fear she was losing herself entirely. Out of options and overwhelmed by despair, Sharon resorted to an act of sheer desperation. She began to harm herself, inflicting pain upon her own body in a desperate attempt to drown out Cameron's voice. Physical pain became her anchor, a way to pull herself back from the brink. When the sharp sting of a cut or the throb of a bruise filled her senses, she could forget, only for a moment, the relentless command to harm Lucy. But this, too, was a temporary reprieve, a brief moment of clarity in the fog of her disintegrating mind. Sharon was aware of her predicament, of how far she had fallen. She had always been strong, resilient in the face of adversity. But this battle was different. It was a fight against herself, against the darkest corners of her mind, and it was a fight she was losing. Who could save her? Who could pull her back from the edge when Cameron's grip tightened with every passing day? Sharon's friends and family were helpless, unable to reach the depths where Cameron resided. It was as if they were watching her drown from the shore, unable to dive in and pull her to safety. In the end, the answer lay not in the hands of others, but in Sharon herself. To defeat Cameron, she would have to face the darkness she had long avoided. she would have to confront the parts of herself she had buried, pain and trauma that had given birth to Cameron in the first place. Could she do it? Would she turn inward, confront the demons that had plagued her for so long, and emerge victorious? The answer was uncertain. Sharon's journey was far from over, and the road ahead was fraught with peril. But there was a glimmer of hope, a small, flickering light in the darkness. If she could find the strength to face Cameron head-on, to confront the shadows within her, perhaps she could reclaim her mind. Life. As Sharon sat alone in her room, the weight of her decision pressing down on her, she knew that the next battle would be the hardest. But she also knew that it was a battle she had to fight. For herself, for Lucy, for the life she had once known. And in that moment, she made a vow. Cameron would not win. She would find a way to defeat him, to break free from the chains of her own mind. It was a vow born of desperation, of pain and fear. But it was also a vow of hope, of the belief that somewhere within her, she had the strength to overcome even this. And with that vow, Sharon prepared herself for the battle to come, knowing that the fight for her mind was far from over, but determined to see it through to the end.